This is the Tree of Life, Season 21, Chapter 9. In this episode, we will be elaborating on Season 21, Chapter 7, in relation to preference shifting. To start out, in Season 21, Chapter 7, we talked about how in the shifting of preferences, whilst on digital media, we see the transition of a digital structure to an analog one, a reverse substitution event. The idea was that the initial set describing the preference is an exclusive set, for which another set is substituted at the conclusion of the reverse substitution event. This initial reverse substitution is followed by a sequential substitution event, whereby the analog structure, which is substitutionary and not exclusive, becomes a new digital structure, which is exclusionary. Now, we saw that during reverse substitution events, there is an incoming consciousness who acts out the acquiescence which initiated the event. The outgoing consciousness then returns to the vessel at the conclusion of the reverse substitution event in negation, which results in a sequential substitution event. This sequential substitution event sees the movement of the incoming consciousness into the objects of consciousness referential to that self. We saw that this transition of the incoming consciousness into an object referential to the self-representation represents decoherence. Now, the analog structure, which is substitutionary, describes two impulses, which are dialectical by context. That is, these two impulses describe affirmation of impulse 1 and negation of impulse 2, where those two impulses are dialectical by context. That is, they are open sets with some intersection. This intersection may be broader than that defined by impulse 1. In this analog phase, there is spatial continuity producing topology, because we saw that this part of the process is reflected by the movement of the attention in negation self-consciously to a bodily rhythm. The state of digital dominance describing the initial preference and the final state describing the second preference are both closed and open sets. This is so because within those digital structures, impulse 1 is affirmed and impulse 2 described as not impulse 1 is negated. Thus, there is a boundary defining impulse 1, which makes it a closed set. Whilst within that boundary and outside of it there is an open set. Now, breaking that spatial continuity impacts the topology of the set. In a substitution event, the intersection of the two open sets described by the analog structure is the self-representation. This is to say that the self-representation alone is common to both sets. But in decoherence and bifurcation of awareness, we see the movement of part of that intersection outside the self-representation, whilst still remaining within the awareness. Thus, decoherence manifests as a result of the movement of the intersection of two open sets outside the self-representation. Since we see that analog structures are contextually dialectical, it may be that this relation anchors the awareness outside the self-representation manifesting as decoherence. In a way, the movement of the incoming consciousness outside the self-representation can be understood as the partitioning of the set. The shifting of the intersection such that it becomes a subset of the main intersection. That's the end of the podcast for today.